like we live in an age where it's a hot topic, something fun to bring up, toxic masculinity.
Whew.
And I wanna live in the tension of how do we find our true masculine nature while leading our spouse, leading our wife, leading the feminine. And how do you balance that?
Out the gate.
Right there.
Ain't no warm-up questions.
No.
I love it. I think the first thing we have to realize is that we should not shy away from being masculine.
Yeah.
We are involved in so many things that are necessary for us to be masculine. Jesus was very much masculine.
I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Because there's a lot of depictions of Jesus where he's not masculine. He's holding the sheep, singing
100%.
Kumbaya. And
I had a line that says that he wasn't out in the lilies, he wasn't out in the field picking lilies with his friends.
no.
That wasn't the Jesus that's even portrayed in the Gospels. In fact, Jesus went and he found other masculine men.
Yeah, fishermen, carpenters,
People who were very much
zealots.
involved in the dirtiness and getting their hands all full of the dirt and the mud. And I mean, the details that were given, they weren't, gentle, timid men
Yeah.
at all.
Which I love. I love walking around my house acting like that's who I am. But my wife, not always a fan.
No.
So how do we live in that tension? What does that tension look like for you?
That tension, I think, looks like, first I know and I locate who I am, and then I'm comfortable with who I am, but then I have enough intelligence, emotional intelligence, to understand that I'm now living with somebody who doesn't think like that, doesn't derive her self-esteem from being able to operate inside that level. And then I get, what's the word I'm looking for? I get comfortable with recognizing that that's not what she needs all the time.
Sure.
And so when I realized that's not what she needs all the time, and my dad used to say this, before you can get her to submit to your lead, you need to make sure you submit to her need.
I like that.
And that went off a little bell inside my mind as far as like, man, this mutual submission type of thing.
Right.
I love how you've always said, we look at the word help me and we look at it completely wrong. We've been taught wrong about it. It's a strength equal to.
Right.
And so it's like this mutual level of like
A
push
force
and
to
pull.
be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
You could say.
Absolutely.
Which my wife, I'll tell you right now, she is type A. She is an 8 on the Enneagram and will remind anybody who asks. Have you found this to be true? That when I am afraid of my wife's, and maybe afraid isn't the right word, but when I shy away from her tough side, that I actually become a weaker leader.
Absolutely. Because that is the paramount point of insecurity.
Yes.
Completely. And when I operate in that level of insecurity, we are at our worst. And I say we because as a leader, everything is going to flow from what I'm providing at the very, very top.
Sure.
And so my family suffers, my children suffer, my wife surely suffers.
Yes.
But when I'm operating, so man, I heard a man of God say this. He was like saying, what I'm good at, like I am very much in my comfort zone. You put a microphone inside my hand to speak, I am at my best. But you put a hammer in my hand, that's where I'm not comfortable at.
Sure.
And so I struggled for a long time because I'm not the handy one inside my relationship. That's my wife. With her mother, she was able to teach her. And so she finds herself very, very in her comfort zone.
Yeah.
With some hammer and some nails and getting underneath the hood of the car. And that's not how I necessarily grew up. And I had to take away from the line I was told like that didn't make me as masculine
Right.
because of those type of like pigeonhole places that we place ourselves, or
Sure.
that would not make my wife feminine because she was comfortable
Sure.
inside that role. But when I decided that I would absolutely be masculine, not just in my energy, but in how I see the world around me, recognizing my strengths, recognizing how I can operate at my most optimal level,
Sure.
that's when like masculinity was able to come out. I go back to Jesus again. He operated inside his strengths. And I mean, he was
In the same human capacity.
yeah. And he was not
Yeah.
afraid to recognize the things that he wasn't called to do in that moment.
So on the flip side of that, when you meet your wife's challengingness,
Yeah.
or when you meet her rough side,
Yeah.
and you meet it with grace, tenderness, but strength, do you become a better leader or a worse leader?
Absolutely become a better leader.
And that's it.
I think that's
We don't welcome it as a gift, do we?
no. I think that's what sets us aside from real leadership and not real fake leadership. I am the leader in like name and label and title only, as opposed to like I'm leading not just from the front, but I'm leading from the back. I'm leading from the from the side. I'm able to like assess the entire situation and recognize, hey, I want to put people in the right places for us to be successful,
Sure.
the most efficient. And maybe that's me taking, the back seat right now and allowing you to operate in your giftings and not.
I mean, that's just not how any of reality works anywhere, except for some reason in our homes, we believe if we're learning from our spouse, or if she's exercising leadership in a specific area, or if she's doing the finances, or if she's fixing this or that, that all of a sudden we're subservient to her, instead of taking that as an opportunity as a leader to learn
You would
and to grow.
absolutely want her to step up into that role.
Right.
I'm sorry. Any man that thinks that he wants to literally do it all, you're just feeding a ego.
Ego, man. That's a great
You're feeding an ego.
word. When you talk about masculinity, we almost think of masculinity and ego as synonymous.
Not-
But I think true masculinity is the ability to defeat your own ego and to allow your ego, and this is what Jesus exemplified perfectly. It's to take your ego and put it at the service of others. Take your strengths and put it at the service of others. And this is one of the problems I have with some of the leaders around me and some of the leadership that I've even tried to attain. Is I think that leadership is the ability to have others serve me, to put myself in a position where I am being served. And it is literally the opposite.
Not to say, I think I've unlocked the best parts of my marriage and unlocked the best parts of my wife when I found myself serving her the way that she needed to be served.
Because it's not where you're comfortable serving.
No, not at all.
So you have to grow. You have to learn.
Yeah.
You have to adapt.
But at that point, I'm not even having to like persuade her to operate in her feminine energy.
Right.
She naturally does that because there's a level of safety there, because she knows that I'm not trying to like throw my weight around just because I'm a man. There's not a level of insecurity there. Like, I don't know, fellas, don't take my word for it, but when you are operating in a level of security and who you know God made you to be and operating in purpose,
Sure.
everything else falls, like, I'm not even fazed by that.
Sure.
If I know where God has called me to be, I'm not worried about what you got going on over there and where God is taking you, because I'm so laser focused on exactly what I
That
do.
sounds awesome. I would love to attain that. I'm always looking every which way and comparing myself.
I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
even
yeah,
saying
yeah.
that I got it like locked down, but I think maybe the last 6 months, I started kind of trying to like drill down what my purpose should be. because it's easy to get like distracted and jealous, and there goes the ego again.
Yeah, sure.
The grass is always greener syndrome. But I started to really see like, man, I noticed that my oil has an audience. My oil has an audience. And I can't be so caught up in what somebody else, another man is doing.
Sure.
What other platform they have, how they're operating as a man.
Right.
What I have to offer is valuable.
And I think our marriages are uniquely designed for our personal growth. I think God put me with the woman that he knew was going to butt up against me in specific areas in specific ways, because those are the areas that he was ready to shape a future leader in.
Yeah, of course. Our wives challenge us like no one else.
Oh, I know your wife. I know she does. She challenges me.
Right. Let's go a step further. Would you say your girls, your daughters,
Yeah, I've got
and you
some of them.
see your wife in your daughters? So it's like I get a little mini me challenge
Yeah.
to push me in the direction that I'm supposed to be walking in, to be the very best version of myself. Because now I'm not just protecting my spouse,
Right.
but I'm protecting my legacy.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I've always said that when I had my daughters, I mean, by I, of course, my wife.
Yeah.
When we had our daughters, I wanted to get physically strong. That's when I started hitting the gym. That's when I started to lose weight. It's when I started the Whole30 and kicking the alcohol and trying to get all those relationships right.
Yeah.
But when I had my son, I wanted to become mentally strong because I knew I was going to pass on to him whatever curses were stuck on me. And I think just now, now that they're kind of growing up a little bit, I realized, no, that's always who God had me in mind with, just to be a match for my wife. And then I didn't realize that, the kids were the wake-up call to the reality that always was, that God was going to call me to physical and mental strength and health. He was going to call me to that. And that one of the first steps for me was the marriage.
Yeah.
And then the kids were just a wake-up call. Hey, you still haven't done that. Hey, you still haven't gotten it. You've been putting it on the back burner.
Yeah.
What you promised your spouse you would be, you're not. And it was the kids that were the wake-up call for me.
My wife pulled up out of me things that I didn't know was there.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Both good and bad.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was able to step up to the plate in ways that I didn't even realize I was capable of doing. And on the flip side, I fell to certain places that I didn't know I was capable of doing either. Learning how much that, like, man, my marriage was such a mirror. When I was pointing the finger at her, it was really, I was looking at myself and like my deficiencies and the challenges that I had and the areas that I still needed to work on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to even my masculinity of like, you got to step up.
Right.
As a man, you got to, like, this is where you're lacking. This is where you are falling short, because it's not just, it's easy when you're single and it's just you that you're worried about. There's nobody else that really challenges that.
Sure.
But when you're now living with somebody of the opposite sex and they think differently and they operate differently completely than you, now you're faced with a different reality.
Oh, yeah.
It can be scary.
That alarm clock's going to go off in the morning does not mean she's going to get up.
No.
And a nudge is not going to help.
Yeah.
Practically, I mean, how do you maintain your masculine self? How are you a man in your home while promoting the feminine wonder and beauty that your wife is, like, practically in a conflict?
In a conflict.
Practically in a season of joy. Practically in whatever. How?
I think for me, it started with being safe. And I didn't know what that meant.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I really didn't know what it meant to be safe.
That means the way you carry yourself, it promotes safety to your spouse. The way you speak promotes safety to your spouse. The way you deal with hurt promotes safety to your spouse.
How you present basic information.
And that is, I think that is a foundational piece. If we were to ask, what is a man, or what is it to be masculine? Number one is you provide safety everywhere you go. That is the true masculine.
Even finding that when conversations would go left, going back.
Which they do.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Unavoidable.
Going back and like dissecting why. Okay, why did this simple conversation about unloading the dishwasher go left? It didn't have to. That's like dumb. That's silly. You know?
I mean, there's one way to do it, but I understand what you're saying.
Right. But it went left. Why did it go left? Okay. What about what you were saying and articulating did not promote safety? And I could point the finger at her all day, but.
I mean, I don't think in the same way that is the feminine responsibility to provide a sphere of safety.
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't think that.
It's not.
A sphere of nurturing, maybe, but I'm those are two different things.
Not safety.
If there's a threat, hey, babe, you go console the children. And whether I'm able to handle this threat or not, I'm going to go and face the threat.
That's right.
And that's what it is to be masculine, to me.
And that should come up out of you.
We become the threat, though. That's the problem. Because we got to deal with that inner child.
And so it's like, with the tension that you're talking about, it's like, okay, I am tender and gentle and treat my wife as the fragile creature that she is. It's still recognizing that she is a extremely strong, extremely scary when she needs to be creature as well.
Yeah.
And then balancing that out and recognizing I'm going to draw up out of you your best qualities and still hold this beast inside me at bay, but then be able to tap in and flip that switch when there's a threat, like you said.
Right.
And I think that we confuse us being the protector and us being a provider, even the priest of our homes. Like, that's toxic.
Can be.
I think we really got to revisit what it means to be
I would love
toxic.
to talk about provider. I mean, okay, if we can settle on protector in a physical sense, a spiritual sense, provider. I mean, I know a lot of men whose wives make more money than them. Who cares? That's not what I'm talking about. It's not what I'm talking about.
No, I think we got to flip that word too.
Yeah. Well, you got a better word? Give it to me.
No, I think the word is right. I think we got to flip the way that we understand that word. I think that we have attached provider with money.
Yeah, Jesus had one shirt, nowhere to lay his head.
Come on.
We got to pay the thing. Go grab a fish. Like, I got you on this. I think a provision is the ability to pull a faith-filled future into our present reality. I think it's the ability to look at your family as it is and pull a different future into perspective, into view. So it's like looking at my daughter and saying, here's what I could see you becoming. Looking at my son, here's who I could see you becoming. Here are the ways you need to sharpen this up. You need to be challenged in this area. I need to be tender with you in this area. It's looking at my wife at the same way. And here, even with the foreknowledge or the prophetic ability to say, here are the ways I need you to help me shape me.
Yes.
And that's what it is to provide.
I look back at Jesus. We were just kind of talking about that. We give Jesus the credit for feeding the 5,000. Show me your scripture where Jesus brought the loaves and the fishes with him. So we're talking about being a provider. We give credit to Jesus feeding the 5,000, right? Multiply the loaves and the fishes. But actually reading the story, he didn't actually provide the actual meal that was multiplied.
Yeah, we're talking he had 5 and 7, and he broke it up.
And in fact, leadership, he said when his disciples were bringing him the problem, like, they're hungry, Jesus replied, you feed them. They're like, feed them with what, right? So he's boomeranging back the issue, triggering their critical thinking skills. And so they're like, okay, well, this is what we do have. So we got something, but it's not enough to feed this multitude, right?
Sure.
And so then what does Jesus do? He's like, okay, bring that here. Now I want y'all to go and I want you to organize the crowd in a way because we're going to do this orderly.
Right.
Again, it's leadership.
That's provision.
And
Organization is provision.
And what did he do? He prayed, blessed it, and broke it. And then he told them, now you hand out what I provided.
I like that.
And so sometimes provision is a matter of like, what access do you have? What proximity do you have to somebody?
And what is the need? Just
What
asking
is
the question,
need?
what is the need?
Correct.
Because
So
if your wife is making the money, then that's not the need.
come on.
That doesn't mean that your family's without need.
Because how many women have a level of financial security, but don't have emotional security, don't have stability, don't have a level of thinking, are you going to go out and be unfaithful to me?
Wow.
Are you going to provide a level of like security inside all aspects of it? I may not be bringing home.
I mean, you don't hear that often, masculinity and faithfulness put in the same sentence.
Don't.
That's not Andrew Tate. That's not what he said.
But I think that it's what Jordan Peterson.
I hope.
It's, you know what I mean? Like who was like redefining, like, come on, we grown men. We grown men.
We can make a covenant. We can stick to it. We can do what we say. And that might be provision. That might be what it is to be truly.
Because you have no idea what type
masculine.
of generational patterns you're breaking off of her.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe she saw her father get cheated.
Oh, yeah.
Her father cheat on her mother, and grandfather cheat on her grandmother,
Sure,
and aunts and uncles and friends, and all she saw was infidelity, and nobody provided anything that was remote to safety. And now you come along. I may not make as much money as you do, but I can provide a level of how about I provide consistency? How about that? Yeah. How about like I actually do what I said I was going to do? How about I provide?
And I don't know a lot of people who can do that. I really don't. Unfortunately.
I think God's calling us to that.
I'm pushing. Absolutely. I think it's essential.
I think he's calling us to that, and he's raising up leaders, other men, like what we're talking about, who are going to like blaze a trail and let you know, hey, this can be done.
Yeah.
Like, ignore what you're seeing on your social media through your doom scrolling. There's a group of people out here who are actually doing what they said they were going to do with their families.
And you find those people, you lock with them because they're going to hold you accountable to, and they're going to hold because they're consistent. That's who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't do this on purpose, but we got protector, provider, and I think priest fits in there pretty good into the masculine role. How are we priests of our home? How do we figure that out? I mean, I don't like the word priest, right?
Yeah.
If maybe some of y'all would be immediately turned off by that word. But I think it's time for a redefinition of what that means.
Man, we don't got to get super deep, but if you study what it meant to be a priest, like that was a dirty, bloody, terrifying job.
Yeah.
You are literally going in and you're killing the animal, you're sacrificing it, hands are dirty, full of blood. Like there was nothing that was like.
I mean, death is the covering for your arrow pointing the wrong way, for sin.
Yeah.
And the priests are the ones who go and physically handle that sacrifice. They're the ones who are, you could say, touching the accountability for the failure of all of the other people.
They're going first. And they're
foremost.
taking all the risk.
Yes.
Because if they're doing it in a way that's not pleasing to God,
It does not end well for them.
not at all.
I think that is part of the masculine journey, is I go first for my family.
I go first.
My wife screws up, that's on me. My kids screw up, that's on
I
me.
am
I'm
fully
accepting
convinced-
responsibility for that.
I don't have no Bible for this, Tyson. But
Let me see if I can back you up.
I'm fully convinced that if Adam, when he was confronted with the choice to choose fellowship with his wife and ignore fellowship with the Father, if he would have said no, and then when he came back in fellowship with God, I believe that if he would have went to the Father and said, hey, my bride, she was beguiled, she messed up, what can we do? Is there anything that can be done? We got to start over again. I didn't, partake. What can be done? If he would have went first as a priest, as a just an intermediary between him and his bride, I believe that there could have been something that could have prevented.
What a wild question. I mean, Jesus is called the second Adam. So yes, Adam had every possibility to be the chosen son in some ways.
And he failed.
I think, obviously the lamb was slain before the foundation of the earth. This is always time at some level is true and written. But yeah, I think there's an argument to be made there. I think the point though is obvious that we stand in the gap for our spouse.
We should.
As the masculine.
We should. We're required to.
I think we're held accountable to it. I really do.
Absolutely.
I think that at the end of the day, God's going to say, "What did you do with that wife? What was the spiritual temperature of your house?
Man.
What was the daily interaction with God and the Spirit of God and the ancient truths that have been passed down? Were you passing them on to your kids? I don't think this means that I'm supposed to say my wife can read this and can't read that and watch this, can't watch that. But this means that I'm talking about those things with her. Oh, you're reading that? Talk to me about.
That's right.
What's going on there?
I was talking to,
while knowing that I'm watching what I'm watching too. So I can't hold her accountable to something I'm not holding myself accountable to.
I was talking to my daughter and I was saying, as you get older, I want to establish not just authority, because authority is going to last until you're 18. Me having the permission to lead you the way that I am as your parent, that's authority. I would much rather have influence.
Yeah.
Because outside of the authority that I have, influence that can last for a lifetime. When it comes to my wife, God, give me influence.
I love that.
Give me influence, because if I'm not rocking with whatever I see her engaged in, I have to now look at myself in the mirror and say, what are you doing? How are you leading? Because a leader, if you don't have any followers, you just taking a walk.
That's right.
You're taking a walk, man. No one's following you. And you're calling yourself a leader. How have you influenced somebody? And so I'm now looking at myself and I'm saying, okay, you as a man, what are you not doing that is not influential or impactful enough that you are the thermostat? I'm not the thermometer. I'm not just reading the temperature. I'm changing the temperature inside I set the temperature. I set the mood of my house.
Yes.
And the times where we are off schedule, or the times where things are so up and down, hot and cold, it always came down to me.
Yep.
Always.
Every single time. I don't know. I think it's the design. I think that's the way God made us. But man, I just have noticed, if I'm in the morning spending some time reading and journaling, all of a sudden I hear the woman's alarm go off too, Mm-hmm. If I'm, hey, let's spend some time praying as a family. I've never heard her be like, no, we're not doing that. I've said that. I'm like, right now, seriously? Yeah, I'm kind of tired for that. But it's just something in her, man. When I'm dieting, all of a sudden she's dieting. When I'm hitting the gym, I've let her go to the gym for years and I didn't touch a barbell, Mm-hmm. But man, when I start going, she's there. There's just something innate in us.
Yeah.
And the way that God designed us, that, man, she's willing to follow if there's a leader present. So we got to be that present leader.
Have to be that present leader. There's no other choice.
No other choice. Hey, thanks for the convo, man.
Man,